I'm just going to go out and say it, but the DC brand needs to be saved from James Gunn. That one particular scene everybody and their mama is talking about. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just in case, I'm talking about the orgy scene that took place in this episode. And before all you freaks come out and say, oh, this is a show meant for adults, kids are not meant to watch this. Actually, let me paint you a fucking picture here. And just in case for the guntards that are watching this video and clearly have a short attention span, there was something James Gunn constantly said throughout the promo tour for Superman. There's one thing he kept constantly pushing for this movie, or about this movie, I should say. And he kept pushing all these sort of platitudes about, this movie is about kindness, and it's about a reflection on our world that has lost that. He kept constantly saying shit like that throughout the promo tour, or something similar to that. And it's really interesting because he kept trying to market this movie as like a kid's movie. This is meant for families to watch and enjoy. And, you know, it's supposed to be just family entertainment, family-friendly entertainment. It's about kindness and all that shit, right? He says all that. And then, you know, he constantly said throughout the promo tour about, like, his overall DCU that his cinematic universe wasn't going to make the mistake of where all the movies are reliant on each other to tell an overall story, but that all his movies, or all the DCU movies, were going to tell their own story and focus on the quality rather than the quantity, right? He was trying to sound all noble there. Well, with the release of Peacemaker Season 2, that turned out to be an absolute lie, because James Gunn recently came out during the promo tour for Peacemaker Season 2, or the press release for Season 2, and he actually had this to say.
But Superman leads into this show, and then we have the setting up of all of the rest of the DCU in this season of Peacemaker. It's incredibly important.
You heard him right there, folks. It's going to be incredibly important. A follow-up to a so-called family-friendly movie that's about kindness is, its follow-up is a show that includes an orgy scene. And it's not meant for kids, but you know kids are going to watch this. And let's also consider the fact that Peacemaker makes a cameo in the Superman movie. Like, let's not forget about that. So you are kind of encouraging kids to watch this show, and you're also telling them that this what the season is setting up is going to be important for the DCU going forward. It's going to have like a lot of guest stars or whatever, guest characters. Like, what the fuck are we doing here, man? And like I said earlier, he contradicts himself where he's talking about how all these DCU projects are going to tell their own stories. They're not going to be reliant on one another. But right here, he flat out says that this show is going to be important for things going forward. That you have to know about like some of the events that are going to take place within this series so that other things make sense, essentially, for everything else going forward. And that to me is just completely irresponsible. It's not well thought out. And you should have had kids in mind when you were making this sort of plan out, or the lack thereof. You know, because we know James Gunn, his plans are all over the place. He's constantly changing his mind, or he's backpedaling on a certain issue because he's gotten a little pushback. And he utilizes characters in his shows and movies that he has absolutely no clue about. And he uses these characters as an outlet to basically live out his weird fantasies. Because we know he has them. You know, we have those tweets from many years ago where, you know, he's tweeting out pedophilic shit. And we kind of see some of that kind of translate into his shows and movies, because he's such a weirdo, and like he makes sure that these characters embody his like weird personality, because all he can think about when he's writing these characters is himself. He's not actually thinking about the characters themselves and their personalities, their attributes, like their actual attributes, and not just something that he's hoping that you will never do any sort of research on, like these little obscure characters that you will never think to research. And, Peacemaker is a great example of this, because if you actually look into Peacemaker's history, he's not some fucking weirdo, and he's not bisexual like James Gunn wants you to believe him to be. Because James Gunn actually says, I believe he said in an interview not too long ago, that Peacemaker being bisexual is just part of his character. No, he fucking isn't. You wrote him to be that way because you're a weirdo and you're irresponsible. And speaking of weirdo and his irresponsibilities, I'm sure you guys saw online or like some clips of the White Rabbit, that Batman villain in the comics. She's in this show. She's in the first episode. She's trying to do like one of the tryouts for the Justice Gang or whatever. And then Maxwell Lord mentioned something about her camel toe. Well, if you take a look here, I'm not going to show it too long, but I'll post a screenshot right here. If you look at the costume design, they actually made sure that she actually does have a camel toe with the costume itself. Yeah, disgusting shit. And keep in mind that the Peacemaker Season 2 is going to be very important for the DCU going forward. But I'm only mentioning all this shit because it's just to highlight the fact that James Gunn, like I said at the very beginning, He is not the right fit to run the DCU or just the DC brand altogether. He has never been the right fit. He will never be the right fit because he can't grow out of his like weirdo personality. He can't grow out of his weird mindset that he has when he's writing these characters and when he's writing it for a mass audience. And I just look at this and I have to say that like DC soul has to be saved from this guy. It just does. It's ridiculous it's gotten to this point. And the fact that he's being enabled to do this, not only by his dipshit fans, but by an entity like Warner Brothers. This is just sick. It's sick. I have no other words than to just say that it's disgusting. It's repulsive. And James Gunn, yeah, you don't need to be anywhere near comic book movies in general. You just don't need to be, okay? I would honestly say that you need to go back to writing for Scooby-Doo, but even that I think would be far irresponsible because I know you'd want to live out your weird fantasies over there if you even went back to writing for Scooby-Doo movies. You know, you probably put your wife in there and like make her do weird shit like you do in Peacemaker, you know, because we got to write in, you know, take your wife to work day kind of shit. Like that's the kind of person you are, and it's fucking weird, and you need to, you know, lay off that shit. Like find something new to do. And honestly, we probably need to do an investigation into your history altogether, and like actually do a current investigation into like how you're handling the DC property, like what's going on behind the scenes over at DC Studios. Like we really need to know. You know, I would honestly encourage someone like Candace Owens, you know, to lay off the whole Bridget McCrone shit, you know, whether some guy has a fucking penis, someone's wife has a penis, and it's someone's dad. Like, let's lay off that shit for a second. And I would advise you, Candace, to let's all come together for a common cause, and let's make sure we can, you know, do an investigation on James Gunn and get this man out of DC Studios. Get this man away from this brand. All right, let's drop the Oprah shit. Let's drop the fucking gossip drama. What's Brad Pitt doing? What's Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively doing? Like, let's forget that shit for just a second and focus on this cause because the soul for DC matters. Okay, I'm not gonna let this shit die out, or in other words, I'm not gonna go down without a fight. Okay, future generations deserve better. Our kids deserve better than what we had initially. Okay, there's no excuse as to why we can't be getting great quality content for not just adults but children as well. And that's not what you're offering here. It's far from that. And I've mentioned in a previous video or many videos before this one about thinking about the children, thinking about future generations to come, making sure we offer quality content across the board because I want them to grow up the way I grew up with like great quality content. We had great childhood shows, great movies growing up, and then we just see this slop as we've gotten older, and we need to prevent that. Okay, the fight for these characters, these shows, these movies that kids are going to watch and they're going to have fond memories of, that matters. It's always mattered. And I also didn't get this old and reach unk status just to tell you know, my nephews and nieces that hey, forget about DC, forget about Marvel, okay? Let those brands die out. Well, let's seek an alternative like Isom from Young Rippa. I'm not trying to hate on that guy, but like I don't want that to be the alternative for comics to go to or the content to go to in terms of like just comic book storytelling and like adaptations and whatnot. And all these like other outlets or like other alternative comics that are just complete ass altogether. I'm not reading that shit, and I'm certainly I'm not gonna read manga. Okay, I know I'm gonna piss some of you off saying that. I don't care about anime. I don't keep up with that shit. If you like it, more power to you. But I'm not gonna go this far and just like tell, you know, future generations to forget about DC and Marvel, forget about iconic characters like Batman and Superman, and just be like, nah, fuck them. Go for this shitty ass alternative over here. Like that's not gonna happen. Not on my watch, bitch. No, I'm low-key kind of teasing about that last part, but I think you guys get the point of what I'm trying to make here. What you get what I'm trying to throw down, right? And it's not to say that I don't understand the state of the comic book industry and like the major brands like Marvel and DC just producing shitty comics and allowing horrible writers to write these comic books, people who have no business being anywhere near comic books. And the same way I feel about these upcoming movies, mainly DC movies, or maybe it's just more so James Gunn. I think everyone outside of James Gunn who seems like they're rather talented with their craft in terms of filmmaking, I think they're fine, but like James Gunn just himself and like his decision making, and it leads into all this other shit. It trickles down into other departments like the comics, the video games, and all that shit. It's embarrassing. It's completely embarrassing. We have to stop this. And if it means to keep our wallets fucking closed, we're gonna close our wallets. All right, keep them wallets closed. All right, I'm done with the shitty theatrics from yours truly, but I'm going to get on to my last point, and it's something I kind of teased at earlier, or mentioned earlier with James Gunn's canonicity with his DCU and how convoluted it is. Like, if you remember, like, when he first announced the DC movies back in 2023, like, his slate, he made sure that to say that, you know, the DCEU movies that came before, and the movies that were initially going to come out that year, like Shazam 2 and The Flash and Aquaman 2, he basically pointed out that those movies were not going to be canon. They were going to do a complete reset, a complete reboot of the DCU, and it basically it influenced the box office for those movies because everybody thought to themselves, okay, if these movies aren't going to carry on the James Gunn's DCU, what's the point of watching them? Like, who should give a shit, right? And lo and behold, that actually had a lot of consequences to that, especially considering the fact that James Gunn actually wrote notes for a lot of the movies that were in the DCEU, like the late DCU, before he fully transitioned into his CEO role. Because I remember him giving notes for the Flash movie, and it was his idea to include those horrible post-credit scenes, or like that one post-credit scene where Barry and Arthur at the bar, and then Arthur just falls flat on his face in that puddle, and that's the end of that. It's complete shit. And most importantly, it was James Gunn's idea to make the Flash be stuck in the Clooney-verse. Like, I don't know how people didn't clock it at that point in time that, like, James Gunn was definitely not the man. Like, he's the man that's going to sabotage other people's projects just to prop his own projects up. And just to kind of continue on with, like, the convoluted timeline, well, it turns out he's just not even doing a full-on reboot of the DC universe. He's bringing a lot of his shit that he had in the DCEU, like Peacemaker, for example, and his Suicide Squad movie, because it clearly looks like they're carrying on a lot of the shit that happened in the Suicide Squad movie with, like, the Rick Flag storyline. They're bringing all that shit over, and they're going to acknowledge that, but then do this, like, weird, like, retcon where it's like, oh, actually, the ending of Peacemaker Season 1, where you see the DCEU iterations of the Justice League members, oh, turns out it was just the Justice Gang the entire time. And you're like, what the fuck was that? Like, James Gunn literally said that he was going to, like, introduce the multiverse with these, like, pocket dimensions, and everybody thought, like, he was going to do, like, some quote-unquote clever way to basically wipe away the DCEU canon and naturally bring in the Justice Gang canon or whatever, like, have that ending. And he doesn't even do any of that. It's just like, you're supposed to believe that the Justice Gang and at the ending of Peacemaker Season 1 are the ones who actually showed up initially. It was never the DCEU canon. And it's just like, dude, that is so fucking lazy. Like, you almost gave yourself an opportunity to almost explain that away with, like, the multiverse and shit, and you didn't even go that route. Like, that's how baffling this whole thing is, and just, like, how he's managing everything. And speaking of managing, the overall slate, like the Gods and Monsters slate, I know I mentioned that earlier, but it's like he's completely done away with, like, majority of the movies, like the Authority movie, for example. I believe he's worked in some, like, plot elements or elements from the script for the Authority into, like, other movies going forward, because he you know, he can't stick to anything. He can't adhere to his own slate, so he's got to backpedal and just basically mix and match script ideas and basically give credit to himself for other people's ideas. And now we're not even really going to get the Gods and Monsters slate. It's now being called the Superman saga, because the next movies are Supergirl, then James Gunn's Superman ensemble movie, the semi-sequel to his first Superman ensemble movie, because that really wasn't even a solo movie. It was just another ensemble Gunn film, because that's all he knows how to write. And it looks like he's speed boosting, or he's speed ramping the process for his next Superman ensemble movie, because if you don't know this, his contract actually expires in 2026. So he's trying to rush out all of his shitty ideas before, you know, they eventually boot him, because his DCU is not really profitable. And they're probably going to wait until Supergirl comes out to see if that's going to do well at the box office or make profit. And I saw some delusional fucktards say that Supergirl was going to outgrow Spider-Man Brand New Day next year, which is just hilarious, considering the fact that Spider-Man, like the last Spider-Man movies, have made $1 billion at the box office, or pretty close to it, at least for all of them. And the first Superman movie couldn't even crack $1 billion, even though I was told constantly by the Guntards that it was going to hit $1 billion easily. And guess what? That never happened. And I don't even imagine a movie like Supergirl hitting anywhere near Superman's box office money. Or if it does, it's gonna be like right on the edge, right? I don't see Supergirl doing that well at the box office. Like, they're gonna have to make it like super low budget in comparison to the first Superman movie, and not really go out on the marketing budget, because I think that's where they got fucked with the first Gunn Superman movie. But despite his little Superman saga, we also have other DC films. One that's right after Supergirl next year, which is Clayface, the low-budget DC project that's probably gonna make more money than Superman or Supergirl in terms of making a profit or turning a profit at the box office. And we also have that Green Lantern TV series. There's no telling how that's gonna go, or like what the tone of that show is gonna be, if Gunn's influence is gonna fuck with everything. It's gonna be a very interesting time going forward. And we also are gonna get the Batman in 2027, and that whole situation with Matt Reeves' The Batman Part 2 is rather sketchy. I'm really curious, like, what's going on behind the scenes, like why everything is taking so long to get everything going in terms of like the production. But I feel like the Batman Part 2 should have gone into production a lot earlier than both Supergirl and Clayface. Like, it's crazy that we've gotten to a point where a Clayface movie is basically announced like years after the Batman Part 2 was announced, and that movie is going into production before the Batman Part 2. Like, make that make sense. And speaking of Batman, or James Gunn's Batman in the DCU, like, what the fuck are they going to do with that? Are they going to explain like where he is in the DCU? Or are they going to actually make the Batman Brave and the Bold movie? What the fuck's going on with that? And can James Gunn make up his mind with what he wants to do with his version of Batman? Or is he waiting for Reeves' Batman to come out and see how successful that's going to be, and try to basically put Robert Pattinson's Batman and his DCU and just like basically merge the two together, try to, you know, bypass any creative thinking with creating his own Batman character for his own universe and just use Robert Pattinson's Batman? I know Gunn has said that he's not going to use Pattinson for his DCU Batman, but you know Gunn, he's one to change his mind constantly. He is one of those types. And if we happen to see a headline in the not so distant future of Robert Pattinson being the official DCU Batman, I'm not going to be surprised. But yeah, that's going to do it for that particular section of the video. I just want to mention the whole confusing slate to kind of show how fucked up James Gunn's management of the DC brand is, or like his overall movie slate and TV show slate. It's just a mess, guys. And what he is doing with Peacemaker, trying to make sure that that's like an important part of the DCU canon, so you understand how pocket dimensions work and the multiverse works. Like, it's just completely irresponsible. It's wrong. And I'm glad people are finally speaking up about this, about James Gunn's weirdo behavior and how he's handling this property like in the worst professional way possible. I mean, this guy, he needs to get away from the brand. He just does. And I know I'm not the only one that's saying this. I know plenty of other YouTubers have mentioned this, a big one being Aaron Fisher, who has covered this tremendously, and he's done a pretty good job of doing that. I'm going to leave a link to one of his videos in the description below so you can go check out his channel, because he has covered the complete nonsense that's going on over at Gunn & Company, and just the absolute fuckery altogether with the DC brand. It's embarrassing. DC deserves better. Kids deserve better than this bullshit that they're getting. I want quality content again from Warner Brothers in general, not just the DC brand or DC Studios. I just want quality content from Warner Brothers in general. Quit half-assing your projects, get better management, get better leadership, or simply fuck off for all I care. But I'm gonna calm down there a bit. I got a little too theatrical every now and then, and just a little too abrasive at times, but that's just part of the show, guys. It's part of the show. But no, in all seriousness, folks, what do you guys think? I'm going to leave it to you now. What do you guys think of this whole Gunn situation and the Peacemaker Season 2 and James Gunn's overall handling of the DC brand or his DC Studios? I definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you like what you saw here today, go ahead, drop a like, and consider subscribing to the channel, because you are not going to miss out on this certified banger content. But with all that being said, folks, that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye for now.